is Distinguished Toastmaster since you received an award under this status? Some of us may not know what that means.
All right. Well, Toastmasters International is a club worldwide for people to practice public speaking and leadership skills. All right. You can probably find one in any neighborhood.
There's several here in
There's a lot in Milwaukee. Right. I'm part of the Wizards of Oz in Mequon.
Okay. See?
Yeah, see, I'm already there. And what we do is take turns giving speeches, short speeches, and take turns doing impromptu speaking, as well as taking turns doing all the leadership roles of a regular meeting. And it's a lot of fun. They're a great group of people. They're part of why I've ended up where I am. The Distinguished Toastmaster is the end of the program. They have several different components both in leadership and in speaking that you need to achieve. You have to do community service programs, you have to be in higher positions in leadership within what they consider the district, as well as give quite a few speeches. You know, I think I gave at least 30 speeches in order to get that, as well as a few training sessions and things like that.
Okay, that is good.
So that distinguished Toastmaster just means that you reached a level of proficiency that they require.
That's what that means. Yes, absolutely. And then I was also in some contests as well, so that adds to that.
Okay, now some people hear life coach. Why do I need one? Would you like to elaborate why some people need a coach in general?
Well, I think the same thing as what we talked about with the grant coaching, or whatever you might need. If you in sports, you need a coach to get better. You need you need someone who's going to motivate you. You need someone who may keep you on track. And in the same way that I suggest that you have a person read the grant other than yourself, it's nice to have someone other than yourself listening and saying, "Oh, did you notice this? You know, oh, why don't you try X?" And though life coaches technically don't give a lot of advice, we do ask the questions to pull it from people, and it's just nice to have somebody in your corner sometimes. I've worked with a lot of clients that wanted to totally change their lives, or maybe didn't really know where they were going, and made that shift.
That's good. That's good. Okay.
Excellent. You have great questions, Andrea. Thank you.
I'm more of the techie, think inside person.
Absolutely.
I had a question. Have you ever had a client that had a grant for some kind of funding and they knew the funders that they wanted to look at, but they had no business plan, no mission statement? They didn't know where to go. Do you help them with that, to write that up based on their ideas or what their organization is about?
I would say, I would say.
There's some people that are like, I just want a grant.
Yeah, well, the majority of the small groups, the small nonprofits that I work with have started at that point, yes.
Okay.
Some of the businesses as well, even though they may have been in business, didn't have anything at all. One of the things we work with.
They mostly have mission statements, though?
Some don't.
No.
The nonprofits?
You know, ideally they did to get their nonprofit status.
Yes.
So they might have a mission statement. They might have a few of the pieces. Some of the ones I'm working with, I haven't even gotten there. I'm working with a few that haven't even received their 501c3 yet. We're still struggling on some of those pieces, and I've been helping them put together that 501c3 paperwork, which is quite extensive as well.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's a lot to do. But, yeah, people come in with all different, and sometimes things have shifted so much. That, you know,
that's true.
That you don't know. When it asks for your mission statement, sometimes they're not always asking for the full organization's mission statement. They may be just asking for the mission statement for that particular project. So, again, that may be something they need to work on.
Okay. Now, it also said in your bio that you just don't help with grant writing projects, but you are involved in other boards, and you conduct workshops in Illinois and Wisconsin. Would you like to tell us a little bit about these workshops that you do in both Illinois and Wisconsin?
Well, the same workshop that I've been talking about, actually. Other than the Navigating the Grant Writing Maze is the one I was alluding to in the bio.
Okay.
I do training on multiple other subjects. There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I keep pointing over there.
Yeah, I can show places.
Thank you.
I'm
thank
being
you,
a
too.
wife for that.
No, I know. And exactly. So I do that. I also do it as a teleclass.
Okay.
So that people are able to have that as well on their telephone, listen to it. I found that doing the entire class at one point time doesn't work well. I break it into 2 days, one a week apart.
Okay.
That's how's the best way to do it. So the first week of the class is, actually I reverse it. The first week of the class when I do it on the phone is finding the resources.
Good.
How do you find the money? Where are you looking? Because then I want people to take that and think about it when we get to the next part. So they've already hopefully looked at a few grants, have an idea of what things look like, where they want to go with it, at least even if it's just pretend, that's fine. So that when we get to the second nitty-gritty about creating goals and objectives, they have a grant in mind, one that hopefully they looked at. So it's been really effective. People really have enjoyed the class.
I like that. I like that you took it to teleclasses where you can do it by phone and not necessarily in a building or a conference room.
Right. Well, I've had people across the nation who wanted the class, and that was the only way to do it.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Let's see. Have you ever considered using Skype for your sessions, like a video interaction?
Actually, I just downloaded
Hey,
Skype
good.
and have a camera, and that
well,
will
we're gonna have to Skype each
probably
other.
be new. We'll have to. I'm still learning all the ins and
I
outs
am
and how
too.
not to make myself look green.
Oh, it does that? I didn't know that part. Okay. And you gave us beware or warning in your booklet as well, and this is it. Okay. And something like do not budget the grant writers or professional written material in the budget was something you stated.
Right.
Don't accept professional grant writing material. Why is that? Why can't we get a professional grant writing material when we're submitting it? Are we just following their guidelines? Is that what you were referring to when you said beware of that?
I'm not certain on the phrasing of that, so I'm not sure if that's me or how you interpreted it. But I can tell you that the reason I said about the money part, the budget, I can talk about that for sure.
Okay.
What happens is I know what I was saying probably there. Okay, a grant writer, what happens is when you're a grant writer and people come to you all the time saying, will you take it on contingency? All right. The problem with that is that you cannot often put the grant writer into the budget. So if they give you $10,000 to pay for your homeless teenagers, it all has to go to that program.
Not the
not
professional writer.
not the grant writer, which if you have other money, other sources, that's great. And in some cases in the federal government, you can't even say, well, this money was money that we are not spending on X, so we can now put the money we had set aside to the grant writer. You have to really read the federal right now, and maybe the state as well. I've not come across it on state, but it's quite likely where they won't let you swap out your money.
That's
okay?
a good point.
So you have to be careful on what you're doing. Right, so that's one reason I say it.
Okay.
A lot of grant writers for a while were doing that and saying, oh, sure, I'll take 10% if I get you the grant.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Right.
Okay.
Now that's considered not part of the the technically unethical.
So they got to have separate monies.
They have to be able to pay for it. The other reason is this.
Okay.
Grant writers obviously need to eat. We have a life. We do need to do what we, to take care of ourselves as well. And what happens is grants are so competitive, and you don't really know. And I always tell people it's rather like an actor going for an audition. They'll put out the call. Yeah, they'll put out the call. They'll say, you have to be, 5'2" or whatever they're looking for, and you think, okay, perfect, I match. And you walk in there, and besides being one of maybe 100 or 1,000 others that all pretty much match, you also, you don't know. Sometimes the reason they make the decisions could be very little. I knew a childhood actor. When my daughter was young, Brian Bonsall, and his mother had said at the time he got his very first acting job, was the reason he was the one chosen for that particular sitcom was partially because he'd thrown a tantrum in the morning and wanted to wear his Batman costume.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, we had he was a preschooler with my daughter
Right.
at the time, and so it was very, yeah, of course, he's 4.
Yeah, they want
They want to wear their
He
Batman
threw a
costume.
good tantrum,
Yeah, he
huh?
threw, well, so when he gets there, he's the only one in a Batman costume.
Okay.
They happen to think that was adorable. And so
Right.
that was part of why they made that decision.
that's
They could
good.
just as easily have gone, oh, kid in Batman costume. You don't know.
Yeah.
So you never know,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
funny, that's
So you the same with the grant reviewers. If they
Right.
had a bad day, if they, as I put it, the bad burrito or something, you don't know. So as a grant writer, you can write the best possible grant. It could be absolutely wonderful and
Right,
perfect,
and they
and yet
still
it still won't get funded.
But you still have to get paid.
I still
basically.
need to be
That's
paid.
what you're trying
And
to say.
from the
Exactly.
standpoint of the organization,
Okay.
if the organization puts out $3,000 or $4,000 to write a grant and they don't get the grant, ouch, that hurts.
Well, thank
Oh,
you.
it absolutely does. Yeah, it does. It does. So that's
good
another
And if you
reason.
don't have any other money than that might just put you out of the grant
Yeah,
writing
mhm.
sessions in the future. So you
Right.
want to really be very careful that you get someone who's reputable, because anybody can say, I write a grant.
Oh, that's what I
write a
was
grant,
asking
but
about.
how many grants have you gotten funded?
Okay.
You know,
Well-
for me, it's the main question, because that did happen to us. We spent $3,000 and didn't get a dime,
Right.
and
Right.
it hurts.
It does. It does. And it's, as I said, it's not necessarily any fault of the writer.
Yeah.
Sometimes the one thing I really try to make people understand when I'm working with them is this really a good fit? Some people feel it's worth that risk.
Okay.
Because the fit really isn't always as great a match as it could be.
That's
So you're looking at that. The other thing is, I always suggest as well that whoever the organization is that they really read the grant to make sure that it really is in line. Because as a writer, I can take the bits and pieces, but I can't write it as well as you can, because you have the passion, you know all the ins and outs of your organization, and that makes a huge difference. And so it really needs to be a team effort to be effective. I know there are writers that do it totally on their own, much more effective, especially for small nonprofits.
Okay.
Also, small nonprofits tend not to be funded as easily as the large ones.
Wow.
So that's just something to keep in mind as you are taking a risk.
Well, that kind of lines up with my next question when I was reading your book. It said, there are certain things that sound nice on paper, but not needed for grant writing. And why should we leave these things out? So we might have something that sounds good on paper, but it may be too much, I'm guessing, if we turn that in. Is that what you're trying to imply? It may sound good on paper, but not necessarily needed for the grant writing itself.
Yes, and as writers, you probably understand
Yeah,
this
I
better
do
than
that all the
anybody. What happens is people write their passions sometimes, and they
Okay.
write I had one client who was just pretty much writing, if you don't fund this, you guys are idiots. I mean, not in exactly those
Right.
words, but that was pretty much what it was.
Tone of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's cut this down a little, tone this down some.
Wow.
Right, because it's your passion. The same thing often I find when I'm writing with ministers is,
they get
they're
too
used to
spiritual.
doing the sermons, and they're used to
Yes,
really explaining
absolutely.
why this is needed, and that's great, but you only have 50 words.
That's good.
And they are
So,
long-winded.
Yes,
and they,
most of them
well, and bless them, they do wonderful
Yeah.
work, but it's sometimes one of those things that you just need to sometimes say, okay, and I've caught several times of saying, let's cut this,
Yeah, I've
and it's
done that.
hard, and as writers, again, like I say, that's your baby, and it's hard to cut.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
But
Okay.
Okay, so we'd like to move now to the writing tips.
writing tips.
Yes, to that segment of the Meet the Author program.
I gave you a whole bunch of grant writing tips.
Yeah,
Oh,
grant
yeah,
writing
but it's
tips,
right.
right.
But
Yeah.
now we're going on how to actually
Yeah.
write a book. Right.
Yeah.
And I was giving that some thought because this particular book, I do write other things, but this particular book was written in a different way than some were, because it kind of grew rather than being my objective in the beginning. Okay, I didn't, like I said to Adrena earlier, I didn't set out to write a grant writing book. I set out to have handouts and to
Yes,
have
that's
something that
good.
people could use when I taught. But what I discovered was in the writing process, a piece of it is, first of all, you have to own your expertise.
That's true.
You know, you absolutely do. You have to be willing to say, okay, I know a lot about this. I'm willing to say I am the expert and actually write it and then put it out there.